guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, and I am going to attempt to rank the 10 best films of Christopher Nolan. And I know Nolan has a passionate fan base, which means you guys are going to rip me to shreds in the comment section down below. Before we do that, though, do me a favor and hit subscribe and turn on your notifications, because we're ranking filmographies all the time, and we want to make sure that you guys have a chance to weigh in with your own opinions. Starting at number 10, I am going to name The Dark Knight Rises as Christopher Nolan's worst film. And mind you, when I mention any of these films, I would easily watch all of them from 10 to 1 multiple times. Nolan hasn't necessarily made a bad film, but something has to come in last place, and it's going to be his conclusion to the Batman trilogy. Now, truthfully, I don't think Nolan ever wanted to make a sequel to Batman Begins. I think it was always going to be a one and done for him, but the film was so successful and fans really loved what he and Christian Bale did in the Batman franchise that he went on to make The Dark Knight. Then The Dark Knight redefined the superhero genre, so Nolan basically had to close off a trilogy.
So you came back to die with your city.
I don't think he had a story in him to tell in a third Batman movie. I think it was an obligation, and everything about The Dark Knight Rises just seems to say that Christopher Nolan's heart is not in this. So I would rank it as his most disappointing film, in my opinion, and I put it at number 10. At number 9 on this list, I'm going to put Following, which is the earliest Christopher Nolan film, but it hints at a type of storytelling that he loves to do, which is non-linear storytelling. The narrative shifts from the present day to the past to the potential future, and Nolan never really tells his audience where they are. It's up to them to sort of figure out where things are going. This also hints at a lot of the violence and neo-noir crime that Nolan likes to dabble in films like Inception and, of course, his Dark Knight trilogy. But it has a bit of an art house feel to it. It's definitely a director who's figuring out his way. So I'm going to put Following down at number 9 because it's still really good, but Nolan had a long way to go before he got to the bigger films on this list. If you guys weren't mad enough at me at putting Dark Knight Rises at number 10, most of you are probably going to jump ship when I tell you that number 8 on this list is Interstellar. I am not a huge fan of Interstellar because I think it's just too ambitious, even for a Christopher Nolan film. It's science fiction, it's time travel, it is a cosmic bookcase that Matthew McConaughey uses to talk to a younger version of his daughter. It bites off way more than it can chew in trying to tell this epic story of a father and a daughter and multiple astronauts traveling to different planets. I don't quite understand exactly what Nolan was trying to do here. Maybe it's just above me, but Interstellar is going to land at number 8 because I kind of lost my way through it.
They constructed this three-dimensional space inside their five-dimensional reality to allow you to understand it.
Yeah, that ain't working.
From number 7 on, these are all films that I wholeheartedly love, and at 7 I'm putting Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan's most recent film. Again, this is another example of Nolan's non-linear storytelling, and he's being a little bit cutesy with time, but he's able to pull it off in the ways that only Christopher Nolan can. He's telling a World War II story about a specific battle at Dunkirk, and he's using 3 eras to sort of catch up with it. There's one about a pilot, there's one about soldiers on the beach, and there's one about the overarching race for other boats to get to Dunkirk. A little too clever, maybe, but Nolan pulls it off in the ways that he's always able to do it, with a couple of amazing performances by the supporting cast. I'm putting Dunkirk at number 7. I've seen Insomnia much lower on other people's lists, maybe because it's an adaptation of a previous film and people like when Christopher Nolan does original work. But Al Pacino is so good in the film Insomnia that I'm putting it at number 6. It's a great detective story. Nolan loves a good detective story, and it borrows an outstanding concept of a detective being in a land where the sun doesn't set. So it's constantly playing with his ability to focus because he can't sleep properly, and he still has to sort of crack this case. Robin Williams is fantastic in this movie opposite Al Pacino. It's Christopher Nolan sort of getting his feet wet after Memento before he dives into the Batman trilogy. Still, I think a really meaty murder mystery with a great concept and a good twist. Any director would kill to have one of these top 5 films, so the fact that all 5 of them belong to Christopher Nolan is why he's a celebrated director. I'm putting Inception at number 5, and it is one of the most twisty, turny, confusing screenplays that Nolan has ever done with his brother Jonathan, but this is the one that sort of clicks the best together for me, diving into dream worlds and landscapes, plunging further and further into what is real and what is illusion.
Well, dreams, they feel real while we're in them, right? It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange.
Every single time that Inception threatens to go over my head, Nolan sort of lands it with a fantastic scene, and it's big sort of blockbuster storytelling with the mark of Christopher Nolan sort of twisting the riddles and turning it to keep his audience up to date with all of us. Inception lands at number 5. Here is where people are going to get really mad at me when I tell you that The Dark Knight is number 4 on my list of Christopher Nolan films. Now, I'll give you a minute to go down to the comment section and tell me why I'm wrong. Okay, are you done? You got that out of your system? Good, let's keep going. You have to take into consideration that The Dark Knight, for all of its highlights, does have a couple of significant flaws, most notably that third act where Christopher Nolan tends to push it a little bit too far by concluding the Harvey Dent story, and of course that clumsy sequence of the two groups on the ferries trying to decide which one is going to succumb to setting off the bomb. I never really thought that those pieces fit as well onto The Dark Knight, so while I think it's a great extension of the world established in Batman Begins, and of course Heath Ledger is fantastic as the Joker, The Dark Knight is not quite as amazing as most people make it out to be, and so I'm putting it at number 4 on my list. At number 3, I'm putting Memento, which is the film that introduced most of us to Christopher Nolan, and especially his brand of nonlinear storytelling. Guy Pearce is a guy trying to solve a murder mystery, and in order to maintain the clues, he gets tattoos on his body because he suffers from a rare form of amnesia where he cannot remember recent memories.
We found him, you killed him. But you didn't remember.
Memento threatens to be really confusing at times, but Guy Pearce is so good in the central role, and Christopher Nolan's script is fantastic. Memento lands at number 3. That means at number 2, I have Batman Begins, which truly is, in my opinion, the best Batman film ever made and one of the greatest superhero films of all time. And the funny thing is, Batman Begins didn't even need a sequel. Yes, it had a fantastic reveal at the end of the film where Commissioner Gordon flips over the card and shows Batman that there's a guy in a Joker suit that's been terrorizing Gotham. Nolan could have ended there, and it would have been a fantastic setup for more stories that we know would have happened, but they didn't necessarily have to be shown on screen.
Why so serious?
It was a great origin that did use some of the nonlinear storytelling that Nolan likes to use in the fact that it jumped around Batman's origin. It really explained in a realistic way how Bruce Wayne could pick up all of the toys that we associate with Batman and go through the training that makes him a crime fighter. It was grounded and gritty and realistic in ways that movies have been chasing ever since then, and it is a second best movie that Christopher Nolan has ever made. And that leaves The Prestige as the number 1 film on my list of Christopher Nolan films ranked from 10 to 1. The Prestige is just a fantastic film with outstanding performances, with Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale playing dueling illusionists that are always trying to both come up with the greatest trick in their book, but also something that puts them ahead of the other person. It's about how competition drives us forward and how two men can sort of succumb to their art and have it damage their personal lives in ways that they never saw coming. It has one of the greatest twist endings, almost as good as Inception's spinning top, where we are debating still to this day if what we saw in the finale of The Prestige means what Christopher Nolan is supposed to have it mean. Hugh Jackman has never been better, Christian Bale was a perfect foil for him, and Michael Caine is, again, the lucky charm that Christopher Nolan brings to his films. The Prestige holds up so well after all of these years and remains, to me, the best film that Christopher Nolan has done so far. So that is my ranking of Christopher Nolan's films from 10 to 1. And now it's your turn to go down into the comment section and tell me what your list would be from 10 to 1. And hopefully, maybe you can use this list to catch up on some Christopher Nolan films that you have not seen yet, while we all wait together for his new film Tenet to reach theaters in 2020. While you're down in that comment section, do me a favor and hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. We are making videos like this all the time here on CinemaBlend's YouTube page, and we want to make sure that you guys see every single one of them.